10 commandments and recognized that each one of those commandments was God basically taking a shovel and digging into our dirt and saying, okay, we got to get this thing out of there. Idolatry was the first one we looked at, and all of us have a tendency to replace God as he is with God as I think of him, and that's idolatry. And then the third command, so that was commands 1 and 2, and then the third command was last week. That's the command you've heard before, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. You know, we just read the NIV version, which is don't take God's name, don't misuse God's name. And so we did that last week, and we looked at how using language like that is really coming from an internal heart desire to exert power over other people. That if I claim God's name over a situation, I'm exerting power over the situation that I don't necessarily have in myself. But today, we're turning to command number 4. And the reason I'm taking this long introduction, and I've got a longer introduction that's still yet to come, but command number 4 is one of these commands that if you know it, if you already know it, then you know why I'm saying this, but I'm not telling it to you right now if you don't know all the commands in order. I'm not telling it to you right now because this is the command we ignore more than any other command. It's the command we tend to just blow off, brush off, and decide we're not going to pay attention to it. And so in order for us to even get to the point where I can say it out loud for you, I have to lay some groundwork so that when we get to that point, you're more ready to accept it. Okay? So run with me a little bit because I'm going to let you into some of my psychosis right now. I am a neurotic individual and I have major issues, and I'm going to tell you what my major issue is right now, at least one of them, and I blame my mom. My major issue is perfectionism, okay? I'll say it this way. If you do something, I have superhuman ability to identify everything that's wrong with it. Amazing. I am so good at identifying your faults that you would just be stunned if we just had at it. I can't do it humorously, but I can do it well. Now, if I do something, I am just as readily aware of the faults of the work that I've done. And so what I will do is I will tweak and adjust and change and modify over and over and over and over and over again because I'm never satisfied with things. I always feel like things could be better. The only time I ever end is when the deadline has shown up or when I die. You know, because I never really get satisfied, and I've never died yet, so it's all about deadlines for me or incomplete activities. That's kind of the way I work. And so I've coped with that by developing a procrastinating tendency that I just simply don't do anything until the deadline's coming up because I know if I start early, I'm still going to be working on it all the way to the end. But that's another part of my psychosis we don't have time to get into today. See, I said that I blamed my mom, and I'm going to get into that. But to let you know a little bit more of where all this comes from, I don't remember in school when they first started giving me letter grades, right? But many of you know me, and you know that as far back as I can remember, all of those letter grades were A's. And some of you are like, oh, okay, he's bragging or whatever. No, listen, I'm telling you, this was a curse. This was an absolute, terrifying curse that was levied upon me by some genetic malfunction. Because my parents apparently seemed to be bright or something, and so they got me into school, and so I happened to do fairly well. But this is the problem. For all of you people who've never felt the curse of the 4.0, I envy you. You are lucky. It goes like this. With every single A, there's this additional pressure to get another one. And that if that one doesn't get the same high marks, you're freaked out. And so I went through all of my education absolutely terrified. And this is where I blame my mom. Because she was a school teacher, and I remember one day I came back with a report card, and I showed her all the A's that were on the report card. One of the A's had this little line next to it. Like, what's that? You know, it's an A. It's still the same letter. You know, if you just put your thumb there, it's the same. So it's an A, and I showed it to my mom, and I was all proud, you know, another string of all A's. That's great. I think I was in 3rd or 4th grade. You know, it goes way back deep for me. So she looks at this report card, and she says, what is that? And I think it was like in penmanship or something. She goes, what is that? I said, it's an A. And she goes, no, it's not. Now, I don't remember the whole circumstance. I don't remember the whole discussion, but I remember something along these words came out of her mouth. That is an A minus, and it's not an A, it's an A minus. And I freaked. I was like, I never thought about this. This was like mind-blowing realization that somehow an A- was not as good as an A, and I freaked. And so from that moment on, I got in this weird kind of neurotic tendency that every test, every paper, every quiz, every assignment had to be 100% or it was not good enough. You know what I mean? And so the time when I got my first B, I was terrified that I would be killed by someone in my family. And it was just one of these terrible things. So anyway, that's part of my perfectionistic tendencies. And what that's built up into me is this thought that maybe I'm not alone. Maybe we're all perfectionists in some aspect. In fact, I think I can go ahead and just say that I believe you're a perfectionist in some aspect. Some of us, it's grades. Some of us, it's the approval of others. And if your parents approve of grades, then that's what you're doing, but what you're really trying to get is the approval of others. Or if your parents approve of the fact that you hang out with cool people, then you're going to try to hang out with cool people because that's what they approve of. For some of us, we're perfectionists about the image that we portray. We're perfectionists about the car that we drive. We're perfectionists about the fly that you tie to fish with. I don't know, maybe some of you are. I've never done that, but I've known some people who tie fishing flies, and they're very perfectionist. Maybe for you, it's one of those other things. But there's some aspect of our lives where we're perfectionists about it. And maybe even for you, it's just your finances. There's always something better. In fact, that's the truth. There's a truth that all of us know, we believe it deeply to our core, and it drives these tendencies for us. I'm going to put it up on the screen. You can write it down if you want to keep notes here. But the truth goes like this. There's always more to do, right? I take great pride in telling you obvious things from this stage. There's always more to do. That's obvious. That's a truth. That's just completely true. But most of us, when we see these words, read these words, think of these words, we add a little bit of something. So on your note sheet, add this down. We usually add this phrase, I have. There's always more that I have to do. Am I right? We know there's always more to do. Quite often we add that extra little word in there, I have. But I'm going to declare to you today that that's not a truth, that's a belief. So if you're making this little chart, go ahead and finish it out. That I have part is just a belief. It's not an eternal truth. There are some things that you don't have to do. And there are some times when you're done doing what you're supposed to do. But there's always more that can be done. Okay, so let me put this belief into our words. We would say it this way at our weak moments. It's all up to me. It's all up to me. We take this from certain aspects of our lives and we spread it around in our lives until we get to this point where we